Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bryan Blackmore with Church Production Magazine. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for this webinar, Taking God's Message Beyond the Doors. So we're going to be talking with several churches, 6 different churches, on how they're delivering content in these unprecedented times. Total disruption on the behalf of the as a result of the coronavirus, as we all know. So we'll look for an interesting discussion amongst the churches, and we invite you to stick around and ask your questions, because we want the bulk of this, or at least the end of this this webinar, to be open question and answer session. So we put this webinar together with the folks at Fujifilm and FUJINON, and so with me today to co-host is Bret Shisler. And Bret, so the streaming ministry has kind of taken on a new connotation, or a different connotation, as a result of coronavirus, where streaming does not necessarily mean live anymore.
Yeah, it is absolutely correct. You know, as we start to think about all of the things that are going on, we see what was live is become, it was recorded Wednesday afternoon and was edited through Thursday and Friday. So, you know, there's so many different things going on right now, and so many different ways that, that this has affected, being able to get the message out to the world. So, should be a fun afternoon. So if you would, first is, I just want to thank all of you for coming out this afternoon and joining us. It's a beautiful afternoon in Texas. I don't know what everybody else has got. The crazy part of this world is it's hard to know where all of us are today. Is our hope is that we give you some new ideas, some ways to be able to to reach your congregations outside of the doors that for now seem to be kind of closed. This isn't about equipment. It never was about equipment. It's about supporting and guiding each other with tools. And it's about giving each other ideas and the ability to come back around and to be able to learn something, come up with a new idea that maybe you hadn't seen before. There's so many different directions this could go. Hopefully over the next hour, we'll bring up a bunch of those ideas and a bunch of those suggestions. We've got a bunch of cool panelists. And then at the end, what we would like to do is, as Bryan had said, we want to open this up. We would like you to have questions. If you choose, because this is actually a Zoom, we can open your camera, we can open your mic, and you can actually ask the panel. If you don't want to do that and you just want to do the audio side of it, we can do it that way. And the third piece of it is if you want to go ahead and send us a chat, we can see what's going on, and we can have the ability to go back and ask questions to the group. So lots of different choices, lots of pieces of the puzzle. Some of the fun things that happen is this is more or less live television. We always come back and we always look at the idea of, how do we do this? And, you would hope that, the image coming from my computer was the best. And I could tell you that this morning we went through a whole series of trying to get my phone to mount to my computer, only to have my computer say, oh, there's someone apparently trying to intrude. So, you never know what it's going to be. I can tell you that for about 45 minutes this morning, my hair was getting grayer by the moment. So as we work through this afternoon, one of the things to keep in mind is that all of us are doing this on the fly. Tom Fletcher has certainly the hardest job amongst the group. We've put together live television this afternoon for Tom. He's the director. He is he's the producer. Bryan, I guess, would be the executive producer, but the real bottom line is Tom's got his hands full, and we're going to make him live television this afternoon. So at the end of the day, Tom will be quite a bit grayer and much older. So if you would, so over the next hours, what we want to do is we want to come back and we want to look at the fact that there is a bunch of different ends to this process. We start with if you will, a 6,000 seat church with better than 20 staff members, all the way down to 350 seats roughly, and 1.5 staff members. The half staff member is the hard part. But what I wanted to do first was I wanted to introduce our panel. And our panel today is Shawn Newby. He is the worship pastor, and Layne Lauder. He is the communications director for the Mount Church in Keller, Texas. Next, we have Billy Cannon, and he is the director of media at Geyer Springs Baptist Church in Little Rock, Arkansas. And then we have Tibby Wright, and Tibby is the minister of media and broadcast at Green Acres Baptist Church in Tyler, Texas. And last but certainly not least, we have Bryan Bailey, and he's probably the most known of the bunch. You know, Bryan has the opportunity to get into a lot of things, but Bryan is the director of media for Prestonwood Church here in North Texas, actually in Plano. So as we get rolling on this stuff, we look at this wide range of different equipment, different abilities, different, just so many different things, from the idea of having 20 members on your staff to the idea of having you and part of somebody else some of the time. So Shawn, where we'd like to do is we'd like to go ahead and start with you as the smallest and the smallest staff. So we're not sure, Shawn, if you're the half or if Layne is the half, but we'll just kind of stay out of that side of it. But Shawn, if you tell us a little bit about the church, kind of what, numbers on campus, numbers of service. As you roll through this, if you want to touch on, the number of people you've had, if you're seeing the numbers go up or down, how is the giving? And of course, we've already, let the cat out of the bag that you guys are the 1.5 staff. So Shawn, I'll roll it over to you for a minute.
Yeah, so we only have one campus. We're here in Keller, Texas, and we've got 2 services on a Sunday morning. We run about, 500-600 on a Sunday. And Layne is our part-time staff. He's right next to me, right over there. I don't know where he's on your screen, but and he's our communications director, so he'll run all the cameras and all that stuff. So yeah, as far as giving, we thankfully haven't really seen that the giving was down during this crazy time. We've, if anything, it's stayed consistent, and maybe even gone up a little bit, because maybe people know that the church is helping and knows how to help best in some situations, and knows who's in need most, and so they're able to distribute those funds to shut-ins or whoever needs it, and so we've been thankful, for sure. And yeah, so the way we've kind of run our services is we actually record on Wednesday nights. That gives us a couple of days to do some post-production work. We never, at least since I've been here, which is only since January, so I'm pretty new, but we haven't been live streaming our church, and we're in talks to do that when we come back from this quarantine. But for now, we've just been pre-recording our services on Wednesday nights, and that allows us to then broadcast them on Sunday mornings with a little bit of post-production. So we've recently bought some of the equipment for live streaming, and we're looking to move that direction once we kind of get out of this quarantine. So
right. Well, we'll come back around to the worship service video that you did in a couple of minutes. Billy, if you would kind of hop back in and answer some of the same questions. And again, that's Billy Cannon, and Billy is at Geyer Springs in Little Rock, Arkansas. Is a little bit about the church. Are you seeing, and I guess one of the questions maybe that I should have brought up with Shawn and Billy to you as well, and Bryan and Tibby as we go. Are you seeing more people log in to watch your online service than would have come through the doors? So Billy, I'll let you go.
Well, pretty much yes, and yes and no. Our numbers have been pretty steady. Before we call it COVID around here. Before COVID, we had between 1,650 and 1,700 in the building on Sunday between both services. We do 2 services simultaneously. One we do in the main worship center, and we have about between 15 and 1,550 in there. Then we have another room upstairs that has usually 150 to 200 for a modern worship. We do both of those at this same time. Typically, we would average 30 to 40 viewers when we were doing live services online. And then we would have about 15 to 20 maybe on the modern side. Well, now that we're online only, we see pretty much all those numbers online. And so we currently just have the one campus, our one large campus, but we're expanding to another location in 2021 to some property that we have that's about 4 miles away. And so we live stream to our Facebook, our YouTube page, our app, and our website. And between those, you know, it's hard to say exactly because, as you know, a Facebook view is very hard to judge. But on average, you know, the numbers are almost double what we would see on a normal Sunday versus what we would see online. And so, but we've been live streaming for, I want to say 7 years. And so live streaming's been nothing new to us. We've been doing it for a long time. And what we're doing now is we pre-record our worship portion, and our worship portion, we pre-record that because we tried it live one week and we had too many people in the building, or we had too much crew involved. So with pre-recording our message, we're able to keep the crew down. And so when we record, we're actually going to be recording here in about an hour and a half for this Sunday. And total in the room is probably 10 people, as opposed to if we go live, we had 18 people here. And so that's why we don't do the worship portion live, but we do the message live. And so it gives us an opportunity to engage with the audience as well. And so the last 2 weeks, we've started a pre-show with Zoom where we Zoom some of our staff members and stuff. And so, but yeah, I mean, the engagement online is just incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And, you know, it's bigger than what we would have ever expected. And, you know, we've always said everything around doing things with excellence. And so we knew going into this that we wanted to continue that excellence. And so that's another reason why we pre-record worship, is because then let's just put a few extra little touches on it that you wouldn't normally have. But you also have many, many more viewers. And so with the viewers, you know, you want to look your best and do the best so people can respond in the best way. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, and if I remember right, then you also have an outreach that's on the radio, correct?
Yes. Yeah. We just started that 3 weeks ago. We've had a relationship with the commercial Christian station in town. It's not the K-Love, but it's a commercial station in town. And over the last year, we've done some work with them with some events we've had at the church. And we reached out to them, I guess it was mid-April. It was before Easter. And I asked them, I said, you know, what would it be like if we went on the radio? Because we have several of our attendees don't have internet. They don't have cell phones, smartphones. They're in assisted living. And so we needed a way to get the word to them. And so we started broadcasting on the radio. This Sunday will be our fifth Sunday on the radio. Our first Sunday was Easter Sunday. And the funny thing was we didn't know we were going on the radio that weekend until Friday of the week. And so we scrambled real quick and we got the message on there. But in essence, it's like a podcast. And so our pastor does the message. And then our executive pastor, they kind of have some dialogue about the message. They have dialogue about the current situation in the world and people, and just questions that everybody wants to know, or that people that not random questions, some of them are, but it's follow up on the message. And then questions about what's happening in today's world, that if it's a question that we're curious about, we're sure most people are. And so anyway, it's a 45-minute slot. And so we started that 4 weeks ago, and we've had some response, but we can't really expect a lot of response because a lot of the people that are listening to the radio, they don't have internet. They don't have access. And so, you know, it's something that we're going to probably continue until we can come back live, and maybe even a few weeks into when we're back on campus, just because it's another way to get the word out there.
But you don't necessarily think, though, that you'll stay with it after?
That's still a decision we're trying to make. I can't really answer that honestly, sure. But I do know that it's an excellent outreach. And then one thing we started this week as well was Facebook has a new feature, and I don't know if any of you guys are using it, but it's a call-in feature. And so they give us a 1-800 number and then an access code. And unfortunately, you can't get the access code until after you've gone live. But what we do is we give everyone, it's the same 1-800 number that everyone can call into. But then right when we start the live stream about 15 minutes before the service starts, because we have a pre-show. And so that gives it time to generate a code. And then our discipleship pastor, he takes that code, puts it on his voicemail. So the people call his voicemail, they get the code, and then they can dial in and listen to the service on the phone. And we had an issue with it 2 weeks ago. It didn't work for some reason. It's been a work in progress, but Facebook, it's brand new for Facebook. I don't know if you guys remember, but back when we first started all this on around March 15th, Facebook just completely crashed that next week for most people. And so they redesigned a lot of things. And so then they integrated this phone number thing in. And so we were finally able to get that about 2.5 weeks ago. So that's been a big deal too. You know, we haven't heard of anybody utilizing it because we've been more in beta testing, because we don't like to launch anything big until we've tested it thoroughly to make sure it works. Because last thing we want to do is promise somebody something and it not work. And so we feel like this Sunday, we're going to be able to publicize that to everybody. And so anyway, that's something new that that's literally just started in the last 2 weeks.
Very cool. Very cool.
It's a really cool thing.
Yeah. Tibby, we know, that you guys are that next rung up the ladder, that a whole lot more help and a whole lot bigger church. Can you tell us a little bit about, what's going on at Green Acres Baptist?
Sure. At Green Acres, we have 3 different services that we do across basically 3 venues. We have 2 venues on campus, which is our primary worship center, which is a very traditional choir-based, orchestra-based service. And we have a more modern worship service in what we call our Resonate venue. It's also on the same campus. It's about a 2,000 seat room, where our main worship center is about 3,400 seats. Then we have a small, about a 500 seat South campus that we also have services at down there. So our staffing kind of is across all 3 of those venues / campuses. We're a traditional broadcast church in that we've actually been on the air in some form or fashion with television since 1982. So we've been doing TV for a long time. I appreciate Bret letting me come on as the elder statesman of this group and being the old man of the group. Besides Bret, he's
I don't know. Yeah.
kind of close there. But, I just, seeing the changes through the years and how we can get things out and what it used to be is pretty incredible. And so we've stepped up with the streaming. We've been doing live streaming from our, quote, modern worship venue for several years now. We haven't done it out of our primary worship center. Part of that philosophy has been, it kind of goes back to a little bit about what Billy was talking about dressing things up, slicking it up a little bit. We live in a post-production world. And when you go to live, there's a lot more room for mistakes and things that don't come off quite as well. So we actually did truly live stream our very first service. There was a couple of minor hiccups, not anything major, but enough for the leadership that's used to seeing it finally produced to want to change that. So we moved to a Saturday reporting. So we're doing ours on coming in on Saturday mornings and getting the band together, doing everything we're going to do, and we start our reporting process around 1 o'clock. And then we are able to make any small fixes to do the live stream then coming out on Sunday. So that's a little bit different how we're approaching.
Awesome. So so you're to broadcast television, you're on Facebook, and what all else? Okay,
we're doing a live stream through the live stream, through our website,
through the website,
very front page, through the website, through Facebook Live. We have an on-demand that we do through Vimeo. We also, because we have our own local cable channel, so we're always going out to the community with that 24/7. We're able to insert into that live and also insert into that with the playback. We also have a Roku channel, which has been pretty amazing. We set that up about a year ago, about 2 years ago, and it has really exponentially grown during this. That we're having like 6,000 folks that are watching Roku. The interesting thing that we're finding is, with Facebook, again, it's hard to gauge, but people are in and out. They want that quick fix. They look and they say, hey, they're out there. We're going to check it out. And then they're off. It's more of curiosity factor. But on the more traditional, on our local cable channel and on the Roku channel, our viewing time is going even beyond the length of the stream. So I thought that was interesting. I don't really know what that actually says, but it's something we're really going to look at moving forward. I think if they're going to the trouble to set it up at home in their living room and really look at it, or to go to a channel and find it, or go on a Roku and install an app and put it in there, then they're serious about joining our worship service, as opposed to just the curiosity. They see something pop up on Facebook and look at it for a second.
Very cool.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So you're used to live broadcast?
Not live broadcast. Our broadcast is all tape delayed. We're usually a couple of weeks behind on the services.
Okay, but you're recording on Saturday and you're doing like pseudo live on Sunday?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, so I know there's some people in the audience that their stomachs churning, about what that workflow might look like. I wonder if you could give us a window into how much post work is being done, and maybe a little bit.
Well, we're attempting to do as little post work as possible. In that, one of the things we've done, and one of the pictures, I don't know if that picture is available when I sent, is we've basically turned our worship center from a worship center into a sound stage for all practical purposes. So our front of house guy is using near field monitors, headphones, and he's mixing for the stream. So he's doing a really good job of getting that all handled, so that we're not having to worry much about doing remix and that part of post-production. We're doing our titling and stuff like that live. Occasionally we've had a miss on that. So I'm recording, obviously, a clean feed at the same time. And that clean feed allows me to go back into, there's the picture there. You can see him with the two near field monitors, which is sort of weird in a 3,400 seat room. But that's the way he's producing our audio and doing a great job. So anyway, we're just doing things differently. But our post-production is very limited in that we're just fixing some tiling if there's any kind of mistakes. We literally had, he's not on this, so I can say this, but we had somebody doing one of our welcomes a couple of weeks ago that's not used to being on live. And we went through, explained to him, we're going live. When you talk, no matter if you stammer or whatever, you go. And he took off into our welcome time, and he got about 3 sentences in, and we had this big, "Dadgummit, can I start over?" Well, at that point, there's not a lot of options. So, so anyway, Casey, my counterpart, and I, we stayed late and fixed it. But that just goes with it. If you can get it right, it's awesome. This past weekend, man, we were in and out of here. We finished the recording, around 2 o'clock, and I was home at 5, which was awesome. So it just depends on the situation.
Very cool. Very cool. Bryan, we'd like to go ahead and hear a little bit about what's different between all of the rest of the churches. And as we can see, there's an aerial view of Prestonwood. Bryan, you're at a very different spot than most of the other guys. If you would kind of give us a feel for what's going on. You're looking at roughly a 6,000 seat worship center. 20 plus staff working for you, and a number of outlets. Not only are you doing, all of the different streams, but, you have Turning Point, which is on, a number of cable outlets and, many other places as well. So Bryan, if you would, and I see your mic is open. I was a little worried about your mic. So you're ready to go. If you would, Bryan, please.
Yeah, first of all, I do want to say, whatever size church we're at, all of these problems are scalable, right? So, the problems that you run into with a staff of, 2.5 people are a little bit different, but when you get up to a staff of 20 people, you've got all kinds of problems as well. It's just, how many folks are you having to deal with? And it's the same thing that a lot of us are having to deal with going to live streaming only for our rooms. I think that the difficult thing that we ran into immediately was in a worship center like ours, which is 6,000 seats, and it was built in the late 90s with this idea that we should make it as, in the round as possible, which is just really frustrating. Now, there was no way for us to shoot this in a way that didn't show an empty room. And initially, we didn't want to show an empty room. Initially we wanted it to feel like we're right there, we're engaging with you. And we were very fortunate to have just finished last year a remodel of our student worship building. And so the decision was made, let's put it into the student worship building. It's well equipped, it's got great lighting. We can bring all the cameras right up to the front, and we can continue to have an engaging worship service. And one of the things that we really wanted to be able to do is our streaming audience, we mainly consider to be, I should say we cater to our members as the streaming audience for the most part. And by that, I mean, we want to provide a worship environment that they are somewhat familiar with and comfortable with. So, you know, in other words, you know, I've seen a lot of churches do some really creative things, you know, full on music video looks, or, you know, on an actual sound stage or things like that. For us, we wanted them to feel like, oh yeah, I know what that worship service feels like, you know, so a familiar venue, you know, familiar music, the lighting isn't different. The only thing that's really different is some of the camera work we were able to do, but even that is designed to get them in there with the worship leaders, with the instrumentalists, to really feel like, all right, I'm a part of this service. So however they're experiencing it at home, they're able to really engage with that. You know, that picture right there that you have up shows the virtual choir that we did. And that was another thing where we got a few weeks into it and realized, hey, our choir is missing being here, missing singing, and people are missing seeing our choir. And so we had seen a lot of folks do virtual choirs online. For us, the difference was we wanted it to be a live feeling thing. Instead of going full screen with it, we wanted to present the choir on the stage with the singers. And fortunately, we have a very nice large LED wall in our student building that lets us present it in that way. So that was kind of one of our big mindsets, was how do we present this in a way that doesn't feel awkward to the people at home, that feels like a natural setting for a worship service. You know, Tibby, it's interesting what you were talking about with the folks getting used to doing things, you know, in real time. And for us, the way that we've done worship services historically, even though we don't broadcast live to television, we might as well. You know, everything is very, very, very down to the second. We know exactly what's coming up. So this was kind of fun for us to be able to say, all right, let's stop. Okay, let's do that transition again, because that's going to be really weird. And we've gotten to the point now where we are, our current schedule is on Wednesday afternoons, we're recording all of the worship elements. And then on Thursday mornings, we're recording the sermon and the welcome and the offering and things like that. And it's a lot of work to make sure that those work together. But at the end of the day, we want people to feel like they're watching a live event as opposed to a completely pre-produced television show. And there's a fine line, sure. But it's been kind of fun to be able to get different camera shots than we've been able to get in the past in a live situation. We can do a couple of passes and we've doubled the number of cameras that we're using.
Right. Sweet. Very cool. You know, I mean, there's, you know, and this, it's interesting just to listen to all of the different bits and pieces that bring us back around to the idea that the goal is the same, but, you know, it's those little pieces. It's the idea that, you know, everything happens on Saturday afternoons to, you know, we shoot on you know, Wednesday afternoons to, you know, and the idea that there is an audio mix that's completely separate. You know, and I think that comes back somewhat to the ability, as you had said, Bryan, that as you end up with more people, you end up with more headaches, more bits, more pieces, more. How do we do that? And I think that's a great transition. One of the things that really started this off and really got this rolling was the video that is actually just come up. And that is from the Mount, and that was for Easter Sunday. And Tom, if you want to go ahead and let that roll a second, and then we'll let Shawn and Layne explain how it happened.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above the heavenly hosts.
Absolutely awesome. And, I think something that's real interesting, and Tom pointed out yesterday as we started to put this all together, is the 5,300 hits that this had over roughly 1,000 hits that most of the rest of the message had. So, Shawn, Layne, if you want to go ahead and tell us a little more how you put this together. From talking to you, it was put together a little bit more simply than having the horsepower of a big switcher and lots of editing capabilities. So, Shawn?
Yeah, it was a very last minute idea, actually. I think, like all of us, we had all these grand ideas for Easter, and then it got, and then COVID happened and we had to change all of our plans. And so it's just a big bummer because, it's the biggest Sunday out of the year pretty much for Christian churches, and so my idea originally for for Easter morning, resurrection morning, was I wanted the body to be singing just voices to the Lord, just for that first opening song for our worship services. Just what a sweeter way, to just thank the Lord than by hearing all of the people singing. So the whole room is what I was going for, right? Well, since we couldn't have the whole room, I still wanted to do that. And so I was working with my buddy Matt Gaskin, who's on staff as well in the worship department. And since I'm so new, he helped me kind of put together a list of people to who would be a good choir. We don't have a choir here, and so I sent an email out with some detailed instructions as far as how to do this, and I just gave them each their part. What I did was I just came into my office and pulled up Ableton, put a click track down and a little bit a guide that just counted off, and I recorded all 4 parts into Ableton just so that the people that I'm sending this to could kind of hear what they're going for. And I wish I could take credit for the arrangement, but this is what it was from, right? The hymn book. And so I just literally plunked it out on piano and sang it into Ableton, and then sent them each their parts. And then I sent them the track that they would record to. Of course, it was to a click. That's how we're all together. And then I just had them clap on a certain place. So there was a click and it said 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there was another count, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I had them all clap on the second one. And that way we were able to line up all the videos. There's probably a better way to do this. I don't know. I've never done it. And so I just thought, okay, we have to figure out how to line up all the videos. Here's the thing. None of this was done with professional mics. It was all done with the iPhone. Just the mic on your iPhone, and they took a video of themselves. I just made sure to say, look, you got to shoot this landscape mode. Make sure it's on a solid surface. Make sure it's well lit room and it's quiet. You're gonna have to wear headphones that are wired headphones, because otherwise there's gonna be too much lag if it's wireless like these. And so they all jumped in and did a great job, and they sent me their videos. I extracted the audio from those videos, put them into Ableton, and put a little bit not very much. I tuned them a little bit, but they did a great job. And I didn't put hardly any effects on it. And then I exported a kind of roughly mixed file, and then I sent it to my buddy Matt, and he kind of put the video together with all the little parts. So it was fairly easy. And I guess I say this to churches that are smaller, that don't have the budget or the resources. You don't really need that much to do something like this. And so, yeah, that's how it worked.
Awesome. Layne, have you got any other pieces of wisdom in there? I know you and I have talked about it, a fair amount.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty much just layering the videos, within any real editing. I think Matt did it in Final Cut, but you could use Premiere or any of the regular video editing softwares. And yeah, the key is syncing it up with a click track, I think, is the only real way that you can do it, and then with clap. But yeah, I mean, it takes some getting used to if you're not used to tiling videos or moving the clips around. Matt was talking about how he was using math that he never thought he would ever use in life to put it together. because he wasn't used to necessarily lining things out like that. But yeah, if you've got any kind of video editing experience, moving it around and whatnot, you can pull it off. And yeah, pretty easy, like Shawn was saying.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, like I
Yeah,
say, go ahead. I'm sorry, Bryan.
We actually learned the hard way as well that it's beneficial to get them to clap at the end also, because depending on which devices that they were recording on, we had everything from 23 frames per second to 30 something. Like it was just unbelievable how many different devices did things in different ways.
Wow.
And for the Easter one, we had them record a pretty decent chunk of time, and over time people started drifting, and it was wow. You know, it was what it was. It was fine.
Interesting. Very cool. Billy, at Geyer Springs, you guys for Easter, you started off with your worship and the team, and I know we've got some pictures of it here, but then I think we've got some video of it from Tom. And what you guys did was something different again, and that was on Easter Sunday, you went out in the foyer, which, as you can tell from the windows, was, you know, and you started out there, and your music came from the foyer. So as we see what was going on there and having your folks sing, can you tell us a little bit about why you guys chose for Easter out there rather than, you know, to go inside and stay there?
Well, we had debated on what to do for Easter for quite a while. We typically do our pre-recorded worship in our student auditorium, which also serves as our what we call the venue for our modern worship service. And so it lends itself very well for several reasons. First of all, it's right across the hall from our studio, so we can pull cables from the main worship center to our nice cameras and pull them across the hall to do anything live over there relatively easily. And so the lighting's there, kind of like in Bryan's scenario too. The lighting's all there. It's smaller. It's got more. Our worship center is older. That we just remodeled the stage about 3 years ago. But overall, the room is still older, and so it's not quite set up in the way that this other room is with the LED lighting and stuff. So it lends itself much better to a smaller worship style. Well, we were kind of going over, what do we do for Easter? What do we do for Easter? Well, typically, and then you can probably see from that picture, we have a big cross that we use for every 3 years. We do a huge Easter presentation. And so we done it last year, and we didn't plan on doing it this year. But we have this massive cross. It's about 30 feet tall. And we put it in the main foyer. When people walk in on Easter, they put Easter lilies around it. And so, you know, we were thinking, well, what if we did the worship in the foyer, because it's bright, people instantly recognize it when they see it. And so anyway, so we were able to integrate the cross in it and that, and then our communications and graphics team, they were able to come up with some really cool decor for out there. And so, yeah, so we shot Easter worship out there that week. And so, we actually, we were, at the time, we weren't sure if Arkansas was going to be put under the stay-at-home order. When we shot that, it was in early April, and we weren't sure. So we actually shot 3 worship services in that day. Actually, we shot 2 that day, then we shot 2 more the next day. Because we weren't sure, because we were thinking, oh gosh, if we get stuck at home, then we can't do this. And so we were planning ahead. And so we had shot a second worship service out there that ended up having some issues, and so we had to reshoot. But originally, we were going to have this past Sunday out there again on May 3rd. That was how far we had shot ahead. And so we went back up to the venue for 2 Sundays, and then we were back out in the main foyer this week. And the main difference between we do the pre-recorded, we do the music pre-recorded, but the sermon, the message is all live. So we do a pre-show. And the introduction of the pastor, he kind of goes through and messes with people on Facebook. It's kind of funny what he does. And then he tosses to the worship. And then after that, the message is live. Well, this Sunday, the lighting outside was absolutely gorgeous. I haven't had time to send a clip or anything, but the lighting outside was really nice. And so we got compliment after compliment. I think it's just people wanting daylight. because a lot of people have been stuck inside for so long that it's just daylight. It's the brightness and the beauty of the room. And so that's primarily why we tried it for Easter. And then for this week, we did it again. And then we actually made the call this week that I think for the next 3 to 4 weeks while we're online exclusively, we're going to do the message live from that room, regardless of where we do the worship. This week's a little bit different. We're shooting, it's senior recognition because high school seniors are in this, and we don't want them to be forgotten about. And so this Sunday we're featuring our student band. And so where their reason why we're not putting them in the main foyer is because it's very, very intimidating to play music down there, because it's very different on how you mix. You music guys will understand this, because it's all in ear. It's produced fully multi-track. And so, we do a stereo mix and then tweak it, but literally we can't hear anything. We hear the vocals and the guitar. We can't hear piano or anything when we're recording. And so, it's very intimidating to record down there for people who aren't used to it. So all that to say, the students, we're going to record with them in about an hour in a point behind me, because the room is literally right behind me on the side of the hallway that we do this at. And so we're doing, we're recording in there because of a comfort factor. That's what they're more comfortable in that room. And so being the student band and then the students, and it's more of a prayer emphasis on the seniors, because it's like we're having it rough, but you think about we got 16 senior high students that aren't going to get a graduation this year, at least in a traditional form. And so this Sunday is kind of dedicated to them. And so
very cool.
And so but doing it out there, we've had such a positive response on doing it in the main foyer because of the brightness. It's just beautiful out there, and with the spring flowers popping up outside. And we're going to do Mother's Day out there next week, and we're already talking decor and that kind of thing. But then we made the call that regardless where we do worship, we're going to do the message live from the foyer. And so we're fortunate that we were able to use our sanctuary cameras. We've got long enough SMPTE fiber that we're able to run out into the main foyer with 2 of our cameras. And so we use a DSLR as kind of our third wide shot bail shot out there. But it's kind of funny. We kind of take the news that we kind of play the same book as the newscasters, where they're sitting next to each other at a desk, but we split screen them because they're so far apart. And so we're very good at practicing the distancing because, people are watching. And it's like my executive pastor told us at the very beginning is we're under a microscope. People look to us for advice. They look to us as examples. And so we make sure especially when we do worship, we're far enough apart that it's safe. And we're far enough apart. And while there's 8 to 10 people in the room, none of us are within 10 feet of each other. So
cool.
That's how it goes.
That's good stuff. Tibby, one of the things that we need to be conscious of is this could go for 7 hours, which would be really awesome, and we'd learn lots of stuff, but somebody'd probably hurt us. Tibby, I know that as you guys continued, I think, and help me to understand, but it would seem to me that probably a lot of what you guys did at Green Acres was the least change. That you stayed with you stayed with the main worship center, you stayed with the same stage. Was there any kind of feedback or were you getting a feeling that people wanted to see that still? Because one of the big things is, as we look at all the different, thought patterns, is you guys stayed the most on track to what you did before. Right. And I'm just curious, as we rock along here and start to almost wrap up and look at Q&A, did that work? Are you getting a lot of folks coming back and, there's a great shot of, the empty room, and a big lens. So
right. Well, our decision to stay in the primary room was twofold. One was just the technical capabilities. We do have the big FUJINON super ditchy lenses out there. And so
You didn't need to do that. Thank you.
But what it allowed us to do was it allowed us to have social distancing with our camera operators, still have our normal crew. We run 5-man cameras, 3 robotic cameras in our normal worship service. So we were able to still run all those cameras, get the angles. There was a mixed feeling. We tried not at first, obviously, to get shots that showed the empty seats. But when there was some shots in the empty seat, I think our pastor did a great job of, I don't think the word is capitalized, but sort of capitalizing and saying, you know, folks, it's not about who's in the seats. It's about who's in the church. And the church is still together. We're still meeting. We're still worshiping. We're just doing it differently now. So some of our main reasons was technical reasons to stay with that. And then the scheduling of getting in, everything was set to go. One of the things that nobody else has really spoken to, I know we've talked about preparing for the main worship stream services and what that involves. Like for us, that's Saturday, being there Sunday to stream and that sort of thing. I'm really curious with the rest of you guys what additional things you're doing, because we're doing tons of other stuff to reach our congregation that's more than just the stream. I see Bryan nodding his head up and down. So our shooting schedule, although Saturday is when we're shooting our services, we come in on Monday, we're shooting 4, we call them Good News from Green Acres. Our pastor wanted to have news going out to all of our people regularly that wasn't the sadness of the COVID disaster. So we're bringing in community leaders who are making a difference. We're bringing in doctors, we're bringing in healthcare professionals, even the guy that owns Brookshire's Grocery, who lives here in town, talking about the supply chain of food. So we're doing those different things to try to bring some positive things to what's going on. So we're recording those on Mondays, putting them out every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Occasionally, if something changes during the week, we'll call an audible and do one on Thursday, so it's closer to the latest news. On Tuesdays, we're recording things that are going out for our student ministry, our both high school and the middle school, and our children's ministry, where they're doing their regular classes through web streams. And then our Wednesday night, we have a regular Wednesday night Bible study we call Webs that the pastor does every week. We're also putting that out live on Wednesdays. So our schedule of recording has literally become right now every day but Friday. So, but not for the primary strength.
Right. That you're busier, really, you're busier than, with the standing joke, that the pastor only works a couple hours on Sunday morning.
Right.
That you guys, you're talking about doing Saturdays, but there's stuff going the rest of the week as well. Excellent. Bryan, from Prestonwood, as we see all these different things, I was thinking that I had you in the corner of going, well, you guys went in, you moved into the student center and you stayed there. And then this last week you changed your mind on me. So do you want to go down that path a little bit?
Yeah, I do. So a lot of it was the student building kind of allowed us to get our feet underneath us from a production perspective. Because Tibby, like you were just talking about, we're busier than we've ever been. And that's saying a lot, because there's a lot of stuff that we do. But we've essentially turned into a TV studio, not just a studio, a TV station. I mean, we're producing a lot of content. We have a very large Hispanic church, Prestonwood and Espanol. So in addition to our English worship services, we're doing full production for the Espanol worship services as well. So, Tuesday afternoons, we're shooting all of their stuff. Wednesday mornings, we're shooting a Wednesday night kind of laid back Wednesday night program with the pastor and our teaching pastor, and they bring on a couple of guests. It's almost like a talk show, but definitely not that level, I would say. But we've got a little bit of music that one of the folks from the worship team will do. And right now, in a normal world, whatever that used to be, we would have a Wednesday night service on the first Wednesday night of the month, and then that was it. We were shocked when we started doing this first Wednesday service. We've got thousands of people watching this. They definitely weren't showing up on the first Wednesday service in the room, but online, lots and lots of people. They're just hungry for content. And our people are hungry to hear from our pastor and from other people on the staff. And so we're finding ways to give other staff members as well that outlet. We also did something kind of cool the other night. A couple weeks ago, we did a hymn sing. And we've got a couple husband and wife on our worship team that had been doing a, when are they doing that? Saturday nights, I think. They're doing a Facebook Live hymn sing. You guys can check it out as well. And it's just in their living room. They're at a piano, totally no agenda. It's really funny, but they're singing some great hymns, and people, thousands of people have been tuning into this deal. So we decided, well, let's do a hymn sing, but let's do it in the worship center. And so we shot it using DSLRs. We're using the Sony A7 IIIs and an FS7, and we rented a Sling studio, which a lot of you guys are probably familiar with. I had seen it, had played with it a little bit, but didn't really think it was for me until all of a sudden that was the only thing that could do what we wanted to do. And so we shot this deal in the Sling studio, and we used the empty room as the backdrop. And now we lit it well, so it didn't just look like a big fat empty room, but people loved seeing the main worship center that they're used to worshiping in. And that's what kind of drove us as we're looking now towards restarting and getting people back on campus. We wanted to kind of steer that direction and get their minds used to the fact that, hey, we're going to be back in this place. And so let's get your brains ready for that. And so last week we started shooting in the main worship center. Same challenges we had before, but this time we've decided, you know what, we're gonna embrace the fact that there's a big empty room in there. We're gonna embrace the fact that there's cameras. And so we're just shooting it. Now we're lighting the room again appropriately so that it doesn't look like this nasty, just empty auditorium with the house lights on full. But we're not shying away from showing, you know, a sweeping jib shot with the empty seats, or seeing some cameras in the shot. And people got really excited this weekend when they saw the room. That was a big, big deal for them. And the other thing, just kind of an offshoot of that, you know, there's a lot of things that we've started doing as we've been streaming and being able to do post-production work that we would like to continue doing once we do live services again. And what I'm hoping for sure is that kind of changing the style, letting them see some more cameras, will soften everybody a bit to the idea that when they come back in the room, we're not going to be hiding cameras as much as we have in the past. You know, and even our pastor has acknowledged, you know, in the past, he has kind of held back from speaking a whole lot to the congregation about our online audience and even the PowerPoint audience on the broadcast show. But now he's realized, you know, that's a strength. This is an outreach of the church. It's very, very important. And that's not going to go away. And I think this is the only event I could imagine that would force everybody in our church to actually see why those cameras are in the room and why they're so important. And now everybody has seen that. So if we ever had a fighting chance, it's right now. If it doesn't work after this, then I'm
done.
out. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah,
You
very
know,
cool.
Bryan, with what you said there, it's kind of interesting. You know, me being from the old school, thinking about streaming for a while, I was not the most pro streaming guy out there. But I am seeing the need. I'm seeing what it's doing, and so we're looking at moving forward. We jokingly say the pastor's drink the Kool-Aid now, so we will be streaming. But my son, who pastors a small church that's, you know, a lot of younger audience, he made a comment to me, and I thought was pretty interesting. He said the quote is this: "If you think streaming doesn't count, ask Sears if Amazon counts." And I thought, oh, that's pretty in the heart. And that's the truth. That's a new generation of an audience out there, and I think we need to address it.
Awesome.
And you know, the hard thing for us, and I'm sure for all the folks who are watching right now, anytime you start talking about this, when I was at First Baptist Dallas a few years ago, we started doing what they call iCampus, which is not just streaming the service, but it's what a lot of us are having to do now, which is let's get people into the service and into an online community of some kind. And there's always this initial pushback of, yeah, but that's not the church. And one of the things that we constantly have to balance with this from a theological perspective is the idea that the church is about the gathering of people together. And so one of the things that we've decided at Prestonwood, and I know that they still push at First Baptist Dallas, is, look, we're going to provide as many tools as possible for our people to invite people to the church, for people who aren't able to be at the church to experience the worship and experience the teaching. But at the end of the day, the very best thing for people is to be physically with a group of like-minded believers who can gather together and do what the New Testament church did. And so it's an interesting, from a technology perspective, and it's an interesting balance of understanding we need to provide this, but we also need to pull them into a fellowship. And if they're watching in another place, how do we help them do that? And that's a question that each ministry has to answer on their own.
You know, as we start to come close to our hour mark, I know we want to get back around to some of the questions. That's probably as important as all of our thoughts. One of them that I thought was interesting that we actually had added into the question and answers that has already come past, and was from Jennifer Morris, and she had asked about the idea of reaching people that did not have internet access. And I think that's come back on a couple of different directions, with such the idea that churches are realizing more that it is the streaming, but it's also, as Tibby said, his comment about Amazon versus Sears. It's like, yep, exactly. So many different pieces. So what I'd like to do is I would like to run back past all four of you guys, all five of you, for a couple, and see if there's something, and we kind of try to keep this short because I think we have some Q&A and some questions that we'd like to bring up too. But and we'll just go back around the list. We'll start with Shawn because that's where we started the first trip around. Is there something that has happened, and it maybe is with you and Layne and Matt and the other guys, or necessarily with the pastors, that is a surprise? I know Brian Bailey brought up one yesterday that just absolutely, I think, blew all of us away, about attendance and about the number of people watching. So Shawn, have you got anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think that we were all pretty surprised at the amount of people watching and tuning in, and for the length of time that they were tuning in. And I mean, it was pretty surprising and encouraging at the same time, especially during a pandemic and a quarantine like this, for sure. But it also made us realize how important this is going forward, for sure. So.
Layne, have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would agree. Our first week was, I think we recorded on Saturday, and I stayed up literally almost all night getting it ready and uploaded to go the next day. And, I was crossing my fingers just from a stance of, I've done things where we've put all this effort and energy in it and then got nothing out of it. And so I was just crossing my fingers. We were going to have more than a dozen people log on, and next thing you know, we've got 200 people on our first ever premiere. And so we were all just blown away that we had that kind of response, and something that we literally kind of threw together last minute, and everybody was extremely excited about it. And I think I'm been surprised that the numbers have dropped, I guess. Though it has been awesome to see all the engagement, but we have probably taken at least 30% drop since we first started in our regular numbers. So that was kind of surprising to see the drop off. You would think it'd actually be increasing as more people are feeling less engaged and feeling farther away, that they would use it to get more engaged. So that was a little surprising. So it's kind of yes and type of answer. So
yeah, there's a lot of concern for us because we've seen since Easter, a decline. It's still a lot of folks that are watching, but as the weather gets nicer, as kids get more bored with families, it's super easy just to skip it, say, oh, we'll watch it on demand later, that sort of a thing. And there's a major concern for even spiritual apathy to start setting in at some point. which is one of the reasons we're trying to prep people for the fact that we are going to be back together to try and keep that energy up a little bit.
I would add one more small thing is you talk about engagement. We weren't expecting to have to tell some of our members to not communicate as much during the service. There was those, almost like, oh, I'm able to talk to people, so I'm just going to go and talk and talk and talk. And we were like, guys, we're worshiping. Why are you having a conversation right now? We're worshiping. So, having to figure out the right amount of engagement that you want from your congregation was a little bit of a surprise that we had to address that, because we're not expecting to have to address that. So,
but you know what? That's so funny, because we ran into that with at First Baptist Dallas when we started doing that, and it's a weird balance, because like that is how a lot of folks online have community, and it's so, especially for us Baptist folks, the idea of having a conversation. Well, of course, during the first two songs, it's completely okay to have as much conversation as you want. Most people are still walking in at that point. Those are just throwaway songs. But at least later into the service, the idea of talking is just the weirdest thing. And so, we kind of had to be like, all right, these folks, this is how they're connecting with each other. And the cool thing is when you've got somebody from Dallas communicating with somebody from Costa Rica and they're having this conversation, it's like, man, it's a different type of community than anything I had in my head previously.
We had an interesting situation happen this past Sunday during the stream. I guess a cross-generational comment that I thought was really pretty funny. We're rotating between what we call our celebration type orchestra choir service, and then our Resonate band every other weekend. So we're doing that. Well, this past weekend during the Resonate service was going along, and they were playing a song, modern worship song, and somebody popped up and just said on the Facebook stream, "I don't like that song." Well, we've got a lady that's almost 80 in our congregation who's pretty outspoken, very into the choir and stuff, and all of a sudden she just pops up and says, "Lady, it's not about you." And I'm like, well, I don't know that was the right way to approach that, but I thought it was pretty neat to see a lady that old being flexible about what the worship style was and still engaged.
Well, and this is what happens when you don't have prayer request cards for people to put their sound and music preferences on to turn in the offering plate. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Billy, have you got any aha moments?
Well, I was talking to our executive pastor this morning, and one thing that we've been really surprised about is giving. Our giving is up 20%. We meet budget, and our missions department has gotten so many donations and so much financial support that we've been able to support our community so much. I think yesterday I wasn't there. So, but our missions guys was able to go out yesterday, and they fed almost an entire apartment complex. And this is happening daily. They're going out and doing this stuff daily. And so it's really encouraging. And talking, because I'm sure everyone can relate to this. When this all started, we were looking at like cuts. And while we did do the cuts, giving kept coming in strong. And then people that weren't giving online are learning to give online. And we've been doing online giving for several years, and some people who have been hesitant about that. It's kind of funny, when I got here earlier, there was an elderly couple that pulled up in their mask, and we just installed like a bank vault mail slot down front, and they were putting it in, and she was masked and gloved up and stuck it in the slot and left. And so, but they're saying that like 80 to 85% of our giving is done online right now, which is an incredible amount. And but that's one thing we've been surprised about. But me personally, I'm surprised at how much I miss my volunteer crew. We're a family, and I try to keep in touch with them. Now, we're fortunate that on Sundays there's 2 volunteers I'm able to bring in because of a camera operator, and then we have a lady who does our pro presenter for the live stream. She's done it for a couple years now, and she was begging to help. And so I said, okay, but you still have to take your temperature when you come in, do all the procedures we do. And so she comes in on Wednesday nights because we do our students, our student time, Wednesday night student time is live. We broadcast that live from the student auditorium. So that's completely live. Worship, message, everything is completely live. So she comes in and runs graphics for that. And it was funny, one night there was a Christian rap song that I couldn't even remember what it said. It was funny because the closed captioning service was actually captioning the song. And so I told her, I said, Miss Shirley, this is your new favorite song, isn't it? And she was like, if I knew what they were saying. But, you know, I miss the camaraderie with my team. And so I keep in touch with them. I check on them all the time. I tell them we're praying for them and if they need anything. But, you know, it's like on Sunday mornings, it's almost become weird that it's the new normal, that we pull right up into the drive-thru, we park there, and there's only 8 of us in the building. And it's strange, but it's become the new normal. And so, you know, it almost gives us an opportunity when we come back, almost a reinvention of ourselves, it's a new beginning, you know, because our pastors and everybody, you know, we're working on our reentry plan, and there's talk of doing outdoor services the last week of this month and the first weekend of June before we move back into the building. Because Arkansas is kind of behind everything else. We never really shut down, but we're also really slow to open things back up. And so we're looking at doing some of that. But overall, it's just, I miss my crew, and I look forward to the day we can all huddle up again and, you know, and just sit and talk, because that's what we do on Sunday mornings, is you get to know each other. And so that's just the thing that surprised me the most was that. So.
Awesome.
Hey,
Awesome.
Brett, can we go to some questions from the people?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Is Tom, do you have a way to open up the questions for us?
I do have. I'm opening up John from.
Hello, John.
From Columbus, Ohio.
Hi, gentlemen. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
You're kind of quiet.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Great discussion and really enjoying this. I'm consulting a couple of churches under 1,000 folks right now, and some are more aggressive than other. I'm wondering if you guys are looking at analytics and thinking, well, we can, and I come from a TV background, so my question is, obviously, we can do some things with the live streams we can't do with normal worship services. Are you guys taking service times down, cutting some of those, as you guys said, the throwaway songs out, or any of these things to make them a little shorter, or are you leaving it exactly like normal? Would love to hear your input.
Well, one thing we've done is we've actually made a conscious decision to keep our worship service from when the actual worship time starts at 9:30. We don't go longer than 50 or 55 minutes of actual content, just because we've learned we see the drop off about 50 to 55 minutes in is quite steep. And so we've tried to keep it at that. And so, but yeah, no, that's what we've done. And we've been successful with that we tend to start dropping off about 45 minutes in.
Yeah, we haven't, we've kind of varied for Easter and like Good Friday and stuff. We try to keep those short. But then we had one of our elders preach, and the next week when our main pastor, Andy, came back, he preached 46 minutes. So having a week off apparently got him energized. But we haven't really seen a major drop off, I don't think, in the longer services. I mean, I think it's partly just because our audience is limited to, you know, our smaller congregation. But we do see a drop off right when, you know, our final, you know, we call it our final little piece plays. We see people dropping off, but lengthwise, we've been able to maintain around an hour to even an hour 15 for us.
We're still doing basically the same length that we were doing, a little shorter, but we reformatted how we're doing things in that we put the message more in the middle of the service to kind of make the message central. So we have some songs that we kick off with, message in the middle, and then we go to the end. We're also utilizing, our senior pastor is doing most of the messages, but we have a teaching pastor that's only been here a short while. And this has really been a great way to really introduce him to the congregation, even more so than he already has been. He's serving somewhat as a host. So we pitch it over to him. We actually do a time of reaching out to the people mid-service, actually as part of the offering time. We said, you know, offering is part of our worship. What we do in worship is an offering. And so he talks about that. He talks about giving and that sort of thing. And then we have about 30 seconds of music to give people an opportunity to click on the front page and give if they want to. and then we kick to him and he does an invitation, if I can appeal to the audience, and then back for the last two songs. So it's changed the formatting, so if people jump in a little late or whatever, they're still getting that primary message.
Very cool.
Yeah, before the quarantine, we would do 5 songs total. I cut it down intentionally to just 4 songs, so 3 and 1, 3 before the message and then 1 to respond. I just felt like people watching online, the attention span might be shorter. It was just a gut thing that I went with, and I feel like it's been working well.
Yeah, we did the same thing. We cut the songs down to we're trying to keep it at time. I think we want it to be like 18 minutes before the pastor gets up to speak, so including whatever the offering is. So we're doing lots of cut versions of songs because it's a different feel online. So especially the songs that have a lot more repetition in them, it's funny how those work really well in the room when you've got a chance as the worship leader to kind of feel that out and see how that's going. But man, when you're sitting in your living room, when I'm sitting in my living room listening to that, I'm like, yeah, we could probably cut a chorus out of that, you know? And so we've kept it to a time, and our pastor, whom I love, has done something miraculous, and he has taken his sermons from usually around 40 to 50 minutes, and we're hitting 25 minutes plus an invitation, and it's amazing. Now we'll see what happens when he gets back in front of real people in the room. That might shoot right back up, but it's been great. We've tried to keep the whole service time capped at 55 hours at the most, and that's worked really well.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, John, thank you so much for the question. I think we have a couple of other questions here.
Yeah, we're going to go Robert in Libertyville, Illinois. Pastor.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's gray and dreary up here. So unlike the weather in Texas, we're dealing with spring in the Midwest. Thank you guys for all that you're doing and sharing. We're new to this, and we've been talking about doing live stream worship for the last couple of years. And I've appreciated the comments that you're all sharing. To me, one of the things that surprised us is how quickly people can adapt. And I think you've all indicated that in many ways, that there might have been resistance in the past, but people are actually very open. And I think it's created some new opportunities, and that's what we're looking at. It seems that one of the things that's consistent with all of you is that you've taken a more hybrid approach, what I would call a hybrid approach. You do some live streaming, but you've incorporated that into pre and post-production online offerings. Is that correct? It seems like that's what everybody seems to be saying. So we've been doing the pre-production approach, recording everything because of the quality. And we're looking at making an investment in equipment. And I guess I'm just wondering what your take is. Is it more prudent to take and look at maybe creating more of a capability to have a studio to do the pre-production, work, to be more flexible with that? Or do you still see a value in getting the cameras in the sanctuary, fixing them permanently, and making that kind of investment? Or is it a both and? So I'm just curious what you're thinking. We've been trying to keep the online worship to right around 40, 45 minutes. And that seems to be kind of the sweet spot for us. And to be able to look at that. And coming from a Lutheran background, we have we have liturgy that has always meant a lot when you're in person, but watching people take communion online, it just, it's like watching paint dry. I mean, it's just, you guys were talking about songs and so forth. And one of the things, even watching somebody sing a song, people are now used to seeing some pictures, some images while the song's being sung. And we think that's going to come back into live worship when we come back together. So there's a lot of back and forth with this. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on those things.
Can I speak to that just really quick? We're in the same debate right now in our church. Do we do live stream? Do we not? And I initially was against it because of quality, right? I'm after excellence. I want to make sure that what we put out there is quality. Well, I went home and talked to my wife about this debate, and we had a pretty heated discussion, and I'm glad I had the conversation, because she told me from her perspective that she would so much rather watch something that is live from her church, because she feels like she's able to engage at the same time with her other church members, listening to exactly what they're listening to, experiencing what they're experiencing, but she has to do it from home because maybe one of the kids is sick or whatever. And I was surprised by that. I said, okay, so you're saying that even with pitchiness or with some mistakes or with botched transitions, you would rather have live? And she said, hands down, always.
Very
And
interesting.
I was just surprised by that. And so I think, though, it might be a generational thing, but I think it's also like, I think she's definitely onto something, because a majority of our church are, young families with children. And so she speaks on behalf of a lot of them. And I think there is something to the authenticity of being live with stakes and all,
Yeah.
and we don't want to put ourselves out there like that because we look bad, but it's not about us. It's about the Lord, and it's about his church, and it's about whether the gospel goes out clearly or not. And, like, I don't want to put myself out there not produced, but it's not about me. So anyway, that's just a little bit from the philosophical standpoint. Do we post-production or live stream? At this point, we're leaning towards live stream. And, it's okay. Just have to let that go.
Well,
Yeah,
even oh, sorry, Bryan, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, the key word there is authenticity. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people struggle with. I know that I've struggled with it in some ways, because like you're talking about, the excellence factor and everything. I think there is an assumption that to be authentic, it's not going to be excellent. And I know that's not what you were saying, but I think there's a lot of people who feel like, well, if it's going to be authentic, then there's nothing we can do about it. It just kind of is what it is. And the reality is, especially at first, yeah, that's probably going to be true. But as you start to figure out ways to better produce it, you can increase the excellence in production, whether that's figuring out, it usually comes down to audio, to be honest. That's where it's the roughest.
Yeah.
But you can find ways to make that more excellent, but still be authentic. For us, that was a big struggle for me, was I didn't want this thing to feel like a television show. Yeah. And so we go to great pains, much to the chagrin of our worship team when we record this, of me saying, stop. We need to do that transition again, because when so-and-so does the welcome tomorrow, it's got to flow out of it like this. So let's make sure you don't say this, that sort of thing, because we want people to feel like this is really happening. And the funny thing is, it's amazing the number of people who truly believe we're live right then, and that's fine. We will keep that disillusionment going, but it's the authentic factor. It's the authenticity that is so vital to this. And for production guys like us, that's hard, because we can produce a TV show, right? We can make this slick, but how do we do this in a way that still keeps some of the rough edges on it, and makes people feel like this is really happening as I'm watching it? The other piece of that I wanted to clarify, Bret, when Robert asked this question, I want to make sure we're clear on some terminology. So like for us, we're pre-producing everything, but we are playing it back as a live event. So twice on Saturday, 3 times Sunday morning, twice on Sunday night, it is playing out of our High-Vision Akamai encoder, and it is going live to all of our channels, to Roku, to Apple TV, to Facebook Live, to Church Online platform, our app. All of those things are happening live. The other piece of that is we have a ministry in the church, which is our online ministry. And there's a guy who leads that, and he has a bunch of staff and volunteers that help him. They are manning all the chat rooms during those live events. And so I think it's really important for everybody to understand there's a difference between, like, we're going live, we're actually in the room, and what's on camera right now is going out live, versus we've pre-recorded it, but it's not an on-demand thing, and we're not just pushing it out there. We are treating this as though it's happening right now. And that's a very important factor, so that people who are coming online to watch it are actually getting some attention. Somebody is saying, hey, welcome. What's your name? Where are you from? You know, that sort of thing. I just wanted to make sure we clarified the idea between live versus pre-produced. It's pre-produced functioning as a live element.
Yeah, same thing for us. When we pre-record, I tell all the participants, I say, this is live. We are not going to redo anything. Well, the only exception to that was a few weeks ago. I had a camera failure that we had to go back and redo. Just part of the, we have a prayer time in the middle. We had to go back and redo that. But we had 2 weeks ago, one of our vocalists, her earpiece went out and she missed her cue, but we left it all in there as live. And so I've had compliments and comments from people saying, hey, we thought the worship was live, you know, because we put the pastor, when we're in the room across the hall, we put him on the side and you really don't see the musicians and that kind of thing. And so it looks as live. Now the pastor really is live, but we integrate the pre-recorded and the live together seamlessly. And we don't say we're live, but we also don't say it either. But we embrace the mistakes and we embrace the few little things that happens because it's live. And we'll get the end of it. They said, well, we messed up. I said, well, it's live. And so that's kind of how we approach it as well. Very similar to you, Bryan.
Very cool. Well, let's go ahead and catch another question or two, and then we better wrap this up. It's fun to visit, but Kevin, we'd like to come to you next. Kevin, do you have a question for us?
Yeah,
Kevin, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me, gentlemen?
You bet. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. This is great insight. Appreciate everybody's input here. I just had a specific question about how you guys are going about what you're using for streaming. What hardware, what software solutions are you familiar with? And you know, what's been your experience? What's worked and what's not worked?
Well, we use Wirecast. We simultaneously stream two services at once. And so we use Wirecast on two Mac Minis, and we send two streams to our streaming provider. He's local here in Little Rock, and then he distributes it to Facebook, to the website, to the apps. We use Subsplash for our app, and so it also feeds into the website and YouTube and everything. So we send one stream or two simultaneous streams on a normal Sunday. Now we're just doing one, but we send him one stream and then he distributes it. And we found that to be the best for us because we stream to so many platforms at the same time.
Yeah, Billy, on that note, is that Wirestream Studio for Mac then that you're using?
Wirecast is from Telestream. Wirecast Studio, it's a software streaming. It does a lot of things. We primarily use it for streaming, and we insert bugs and we play videos out of it. But Wirecast is the name of the software.
Perfect. Yeah, Bryan, how about you down in Prestonwood?
We use Haivision as our streaming provider, and through that we have an encoder that we rent from them that sits in our control room, and that allows us, I forget how many channels we have in that encoder, but it allows us, each channel can output to multiple streams as we need it. So we're using Haivision as the backbone of the streaming. They're incredibly solid for all of that. What we're doing right now is we're actually using a beta version. They'd probably kill me for saying this, whatever. So we're using like a beta version of some software they're using where we are taking our pre-produced file. This is obviously not what we do in normal times, but we're taking a pre-produced file, uploading it to their cloud. It gets put up there as an asset that we can then assign to live stream to all of our different places. Subsplash is also who we use for our app. So our iPhone app, as well as our Roku app that just came out and our Apple TV app that just came out. All of that gets handled through Subsplash, but the streaming actually goes through Haivision. So Haivision delivers to all those different channels.
Excellent. Tibby, do you have a...
We have hardware encoders that we use to stream to our normal Roku channel, those sort of things. Live stream, again, was new for us out of our primary worship center. So we're utilizing Livestream, their Livestream producer software package to get that out. For right now, we are looking in my engineering guy, Casey's been looking into some kind of hardware encoder moving forward when we go back, because I know we'll continue to do it out of both venues. And so we're going to have to double up and do it that way. So hey, I just want to, if you don't mind, I just want to jump in here, and Bret may kill me for this, but hey, I just want to say I appreciate Bret getting involved in this. Most of us know him as the FUJINON guy.
That's right.
And the purveyor of all the lenses that we use, you know, those big expensive pieces of glass. But he also has a great heart for ministry. And I know you guys that know him know that. And the fact he's been involved in church ministry, has a degree from a theology degree that none of us have, or at least I don't have at the level he does. But I just appreciate his heart for ministry and him jumping in here with us, not as just somebody that we use for equipment, but that's truly become a friend and a resource. So, Bret,
you know, Tibby, I'm glad you said that. I'm disappointed because you beat me to it.
Okay.
Because I wanted to say something nice about Bret too. I usually say funny things about Bret, but it brings up a really important point of how important it is, no matter what size you are, no matter what all you're doing, it's important to have partners. And there's two important types of partners to have. One is to have somebody like a Bret Shisler at Fuji who, number one, knows his stuff really well, but number two, understands what we do as church people. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of tech guys out there who are really good at technical stuff, but you bring somebody like Bret in who has years of experience doing church work and understanding that, he's able to translate things to his other cohorts at, you know, where he works to make sure that we get what we need. So it's important to have partnerships like that you can lean on when you don't know what to do. I mean, this happens. Bret probably cringes every time he sees my number pop up on his phone. But when I don't know what to do, or I need help with something, I know that I can get to him and he'll steer me in the right direction. And the other type of partnership that you need is like this group of folks right here on this call. We need to be able to lean on each other, text each other, message each other, see what's going on, check in on each other. And it's hard for tech guys. I know we've probably got a lot of pastors and worship leaders online too. The reality is, for all of us, we're really busy. And we think we're really busy because we are really busy. And it's easy to say, well, I just don't have the time to do the networking thing and to deal with all that, or they would be annoyed if I called them. You know, I've put my social media handle up here at Worship Media Man. I would love for anybody to call me. It's an iron sharpening iron situation. And it is easy for us, especially in the media world, for us to get completely isolated. And for those of you guys who are working with little to no staff, you run an even stronger risk of that being a problem, because you're the one-man show, you're doing it all, and everybody's relying on you to do it, and you know that. And while God can use that, Satan can also use that to completely isolate you and turn you into the type of person that you never wanted to be, and insert depression into it and all the rest. So I just wanted to piggyback off of that, Tibby, and make that point. We've been talking a lot of tech, but there's a lot more to this.
And it's also nice to have a friend that's actually a NASCAR chaplain. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now that you've thoroughly embarrassed me, shoot. Well, let's do another question or two, and then we best wrap up this afternoon. So
Shannon from Ohio has been waiting. So let's give Shannon the last question.
Hello, Shannon.
Hello, friends. Thank you for doing this afternoon. I have a question for you. What are you guys doing for kids programming? You know, not necessarily Sunday school, but like kids worship. Are you creating age-specific content in any way?
Yes, we are. The things that we're recording some stuff on Wednesday evening, where we have some songs and hand motions and all the stuff that goes along with it with kids, and then a kids lesson that our children's ministry is doing. You know, the trick with that in the beginning, and all you guys understand this, was, hey, we just want to get some tracks and go up there and do signs with those and utilize these tracks. And we're like, wait a minute, you still got to deal with copyright. You still have things you have to do. So one of our worship leaders that does our Resonate Worship agreed to go over with the guitar and do some things that we could do under CCLI, etc. And so they are recording some things that they're putting on the front end of that. And then they also utilizing some resources that they've gotten from other ministries that allowed us to use to kind of plug into those lessons, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, we've our children's pastors, we pre-recorded about 12 of these a couple weeks ago, but bi-weekly they're putting out videos. They're like 5-minute clips with props, and they're very engaging for the kids, and they're putting them on social media. And they're also doing Sunday school lessons from the Sunday school teachers that are doing them from their house, and they're posting those weekly as well. And so that's how they're engaging with the kids on our end.
One of the things that we're doing in addition to that is, and this is the other cool thing about being able to pre-produce some of that, when our pastor and our teaching pastor are recording the sermons, our children's pastor and our student pastor are sitting in the room taking notes. And so on Saturday and Sunday, when we air the services, there's a link that pops up that people can go to download discussion questions that they can use as a family with their kids or with their students. And that's been a really cool way to kind of tie everything together.
Yeah, we're putting those online resources up as well, and it's really been well received by the families at home.
So we're using, we're mainly using Ministry Grid. It's a online video hosting platform for training. My time's pretty much all consumed and more with just getting Sunday rolling. So we've left it up to our children's ministers to take care of that. And they've been doing a great job. They've been recording stuff in their home. They've been using, YouTube music videos to post on there just to get some energetic worship stuff going on. And then they've been pushing that out through all their channels to the families. So it's pretty low key, but we're doing what we got to do. And I think families are enjoying it, and at least, getting to see our children's ministers' face regularly and hear from them and get engaged with that. So.
Very good. Very good. Well, I think it's probably time that we wrap this up. I see we got Bryan Blackmore back from Church Production Magazine. I know, due to the world's, requirements, there's times you got to pop in and pop out. So, Bryan, we're glad you're back. We only went a half hour beyond where we said we would. So, I think this has been an excellent time. Really wanted to thank everyone. I especially wanted to thank Church Production Magazine. Bryan, you guys have been the best. You can't imagine all of the stuff that went behind this, and really especially, to our panelists who have been just awesome. The text messages and the pictures and everything else back and forth, between Shawn and Layne and Billy and Tibby and Bryan. You guys have really helped me to understand how much you care about what it is that you're trying to do. And there's another person that's behind this whole thing is Tom Fletcher. He's our marketing manager. And between he and Stosh have figured out how to make Zoom work and figure out all of the things, I cannot tell you how many panicked moments in the last few days there has been. We teased on the front end of this about cameras. I know that Tom Fletcher has worked hours and hours and hours to try to put this live program together. So, Tom, we really, really appreciate you, and thank you for being so much a big part of this, actually for making it happen. Stosh, we appreciate you being back there too. To all our marketing people that have helped us put together, we just thank you for the opportunity. As we wrap this afternoon up, sorry we missed some of the questions. I hope that, it's been something to work with and work from. And finally, as I leave all of you today, I just ask that we all pray for each other, look after each other. I don't think this is over yet, but God's got this figured out. He knows exactly what it's going to look like, and it might not be what we think it's going to look like, but I'm positive it'll be exactly what he wanted. So with that, I'd like to close and just thank you all and tell you to have a great afternoon and be safe. And as we've heard over and over and over, go wash your hands.
Yes.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks.
Bye.